Hi, welcome to Barmy Army Fan Camp's final league game of the season. We beat Everton 2-0. Bit of a strange old game. Never really seemed to get going. Definitely end of season feeling about it. I'm joined this afternoon by Fiona, Matt, Mark and Jake. Jake, you repeatedly talked about the lack of urgency in that game, and yet 2-0 win over Everton. Happy days, right?
You make me sound very negative there, but you're only saying the truth. It did have that end of season feeling to it. It was slow. Both sides were a bit reluctant to go and actually have a go for goal. But at the end of the day, you can't blame them massively. I mean, they both officially got nothing to play for. It was a sense of pride, really. But it reminded me of the Conti Cup game where both sides didn't have a lot to play for. And obviously, different outcome, a much more favourable outcome this time with the win. But yeah, a game where there was very little to talk about up front. Yes, one team's won, but did either deserve it? No, not really. But look, we'll take it.
Yeah, definitely take any victory over Everton. And certainly when we were hoping that we were going to have something to fight for at this stage of the season, this was a fixture that we thought could have tripped us up. Mark, with that in mind, actually, do we need to give that result more credit?
The Everton obviously were going to play a part in the outcome of the third place, obviously with Arsenal playing them and then us. Ultimately, we've got to play the team in front of us. And we played all right today. We weren't great. We played all right. We got what we needed out of the game, which was 3 points. And, the question now becomes have we seen a progression from last season into this season? And that now is the next question where we probably all go.
So with that in mind, Matt, progression from last season to this season, closer to the top three. And just one bad match. Is that all we're putting it down to?
Yeah, I think, Casey said it herself that she looked back on the Reading game as the one that cost us. And of course, ultimately, I think she's been proved right because despite us losing to Arsenal a week later, had we won that Reading game, we would have made it. Or even, I think, if we'd have drawn that Arsenal game, that would have been enough. So it was very definitely fine margins. But I think progress is definitely the word I'd use because, when last season was halted, I think we was about 13 points behind and going backwards. I think several of us have said, had last season played out, it's entirely possible we would have lost fourth and possibly even finished fifth or sixth. I think it's quite easy to forget that this is the first time we've played out a full top flight season. This team has only existed for 3 years. So I think you would have to call it progress when after 3 seasons, we are disappointed having missed out on the Champions League by a point.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly of late, Fiona, we're finishing the season on a good run. We had that real blip, sort of turn of the year. We were struggling to put results together last few weeks. Not necessarily the performances, but the results.
Yeah, and I think we've said we'd always want points first. That's the most important. And a sign that we have improved on last season by getting points when we didn't necessarily deserve them. There have been times this season where we've won the game, but the other team were better, or not as bad as the result made them look. We've had a bit of luck go our way in that respect. Obviously, we've been very unlucky with injuries. I think that's the question that Casey's mentioned. What could have happened if everybody had stayed fit for the full season? And obviously, we'll never know that. But with those injuries we've had to important players, we've still had good results. And I think, they're not every game, but that's going to give us a bit of confidence going forward as well, knowing that we can get a result when we don't deserve it. We can get a result when our star player isn't necessarily playing. Give the rest of the squad a bit of confidence, and I think that's a sign of progression that we should all be proud of. Like Matt said, it's only our third season. That's we've made a lot of progress very quickly.
Jake, talking about progress, and it feels like in a way it's a 2-0 victory today, but there's not a whole heap to talk about because it wasn't the kind of game. A lot of us were distracted. The men were playing at the same time. Some people chose to watch Formula One as well. People were pulled in different directions. Yes, I know. But the game itself wasn't so exciting you couldn't take your eyes off it. But if we look at that in terms of our progress, then this is the thing that we've said for weeks, that we just need to grind out these results. And actually, that thing that we've talked about on the last few fan cams, had we done that, Brighton, Reading, let's put Arsenal in there as well. This is a very, very different end of the season for us. So, yeah, not a great game, but anything stand out for you?
It wasn't enthralling. You're absolutely right. It's not one that will live too long in the memory. I think the first goal, the opening goal, albeit I had to watch it on a replay, was brilliant in the sense that obviously a brilliant assist from Kristen, which I watched it quite a few times, It was a very good cross, and then a finish from Tooney to match. That was a real standout. You'd hope it would set the tone for the game, but it sort of trailed off after that. But look, we can't be too critical about the fact that, we've not absolutely battered them, we've not controlled the game, we've not taken it to them. Look, we've won the game, and you look at Arsenal today, who failed to beat Villa. Okay, situationally, they didn't need anything from this game, but the big teams don't always win week in, week out, unless you are Chelsea. other sides will slip up here and there, and we've not slipped up today. It's 3 points, it's maximum points, and it's a clean sheet on the final day. So we've done the job. We know. I think the frustration is we know these players are better than what they've shown today. We've seen high points in this season. We've seen obviously the draw on the opening day against Chelsea. We've seen the win at home to Arsenal. We saw that brilliant run in the first half of the season. And today it was sloppy. Now you've got to admit that. But some players did stand out. Likes of Amy T, Jackie, all those that have gone into the poll have played well individually. But yeah, we've got to look at the positives. We've got the results. It's a clean sheet. That's more than what we've had in a number of games this season.
And Matt, it's a win against Everton, and it's a win against Willie Kirk. Come on.
Yeah, it's always good getting one over on Willie Kirk, let's face it. I mean, that's 6 games out of 7. We've now beaten them. I mean, the Conti Cup game was the only slight blip. And yeah, what can you say? There's always going to be a bit of needle between us and Everton because of that connection, and also some of the ridiculous stuff that's happened surrounding previous games this season with, pitch damage, roof damage, or whatever else weird excuse they've come up with. So yeah, it's always satisfying. Of course, it means we've done the league double over them for the second season out of 2. So happy days.
Yeah, definitely happy days. Mark, talking about Kristen Press today, actually, because I know it's a conversation you and I have had. There are suggestions that she and Tobin aren't going to re-sign for next year. There are suggestions that if anything happens, it won't be until after the Olympics. So we're unlikely to hear anything. If we are seeing the last match, maybe next week, the last match of Kristen Press's Manchester United career, for me, it's a great shame because I think we're seeing the best of her now. What will stick out for you? Tobin, we know, obviously, the first half of the season, absolutely outstanding. Probably would have made player of the season had she carried on, had she been fit. Where do we put Kristen in all of this?
I think Kristen took a time to adjust to the league. And then I think from beginning of this calendar year, we've seen the best of her. She's played most games. She missed a few with injury or she was rested. but we've seen the best of her, and actually her movement. I'm so impressed with her movement, and I've said it to others. She doesn't, as a striker or a winger, she just doesn't stick to her position. She drops back to start the plays off, and it's her movement that I like to watch. It's a shame if they don't sign, because then it goes back to the question that everyone else has asked: if not us, who and where? And but I would like to see them live, because watching her movement on the telly is one thing; seeing them live is completely different. She's for the second half. Obviously, you're completely right. Tobin was brilliant in the first half of the season. I think Kristen has taken that into the second half of the season, and because she's had regular games, we've seen that.
Yeah, and I think you said there you'd love to see her play live. I think every one of us here, we're regular match goers, certainly home games. I think every one of us would just love to have one game at least, at the very least, just one game.
Yeah.
Even if we don't manage to get anything signed or get those pictures, I know some people would love it. But by the way, Mark, oh no, you've got wrong shirt today, haven't I? Sorry, Fiona. Okay, next week, last game of the season. It's not an easy one. We've got a Leicester team that were promoted last week, one promotion last week, had a week off this week. That could work either way for them, but we've got to be on our guard, you'd think.
Yeah, they're obviously going to be full of confidence because they've got their promotion. They probably also want a bit of revenge for the result last time round. Yeah, but I also think, if we scored 11 against them, they're going to want to put a few past us as a bit of revenge, and go for a bit of the big team kind of around us. And I don't know, that probably goes in their favour, but we also have a strong squad. We've got Leah coming back. She's had some more minutes today. I don't think she'll start, but coming off the bench, having Leah running at them, that would be scary. Tooney loves to score against Leicester, so she'll be trying every single shot she can, any single time she can as well. And if it is some of the players' last game for United, whether that be because they are leaving because of the end of the contract or they're moving on, those kind of things, I think any player would still want to have a good last performance, even if it's just the last game of the season. I want a strong performance before I go off on my break, that kind of thing. I think that will also go into our favour. I think it'll be a close game, and I think maybe it's one of those games where we just need to grind out a result and we don't care about the performance. Obviously, it'd be nice to have a good performance with it as well, but it's all about getting the win, getting into the next round of the cup and finishing it off next season with potentially some different players. It's all great. So yeah, a strong performance needed.
Yeah, definitely want to finish the season off well. Now, normally at this point, I'd be asking you for your player of the match. And I dare say, maybe Jake, maybe Matt, you've started to think, what am I going to say? I'm not asking you that because we had a real struggle with it, okay? That now completes our league programme. Next week, cup, whatever, we'll address that next week. I want your highlight of the season in the league. Okay? One comment. One favourite moment. Go on, Jake. If you're feeling brave, you can take yourself off mute and go first.
Yeah, I'm going to throw it back to the first day. The first day after about it, the Chelsea game, getting that unexpected point, a tactical masterclass from Casey to bring Jackie off the bench. Yeah, my moment of the season. Only a point, but a very good one.
But in the context at that point, we'd scored against one of the big three. We took a point off one of the big three. And I still say, I don't think I celebrated a goal, maybe Tobin's against City, as much as that one. Mark, highlight of the season, the league season.
Well, Jake just stole mine because I said it on the BA podcast when we did when we talked about highlights. I said the Chelsea game. I'm now going to. I think most of us would either say Chelsea. I'm going to go for City at home the 2-2 draw, the comeback in the second half. It was a proper game. I love that game. Tobin's goal was brilliant. But my favourite bit of that entire game is the photograph of Lucy Stan and Steph Houghton. It's just my favourite photograph of where they're defending the corner. If you haven't seen it, search for it. It's a brilliant photo.
It's the photo that's taken as, was it when Lucy when she nearly got the winner rather than Hanson's equaliser? Yeah. Check it out if you haven't seen it. Matt, highlight of the season.
I think for me, it's got to be the win over Arsenal for several reasons. I think it was a hugely significant result for us to get a win against one of the big three in the league. It was a clean sheet, and I think that was something like the first time in 30 league games that Arsenal hadn't scored. Literally nobody keeps clean sheets against Arsenal. So for us to do that was massive. And we already had the Conti Cup win over City, which was obviously fantastic. But, the league's a whole different ball game. To get a big league win was massive. And it meant that although it didn't last and we didn't see it through, we got to see United on top of the WSL.
Yeah, shame it didn't last long enough. Fiona.
I think I'm going to go with Jake and go with the Chelsea game, first game of the season, because the first half, Chelsea should have been 3-4-0 up at half time quite easily. But we came out in the second half looking a different team, a confident team, very attacking. And I think that's something that's a sign of progression from last season. We could come back from a losing position. It might have just been to get a draw, but we got a point and we weren't expecting to get a point from that position. And we didn't have Kristen and Tobin either, so it's pretty much the squad we had last season, and we still did that. I think that's quite big in of itself, but then to do it against Chelsea, who've won the league, who've won 18 out of their 22 games, it's just, I think that's a moment of pride as well. It's like, we're very proud of the girls for coming back from that position and getting the point. So I think that's got to be the moment for me.
Absolutely, and on a day when Chelsea have won the title, then it looks all the better. Mark, did you just want to come back on something before I wrap up?
Yeah, I've also, my other favourite moment, and it's a light-hearted moment, is on one of the podcasts where Fiona announces that Tobin and Kristen are in talks with United, and it was Jake's reaction. It was it was just pure brilliance, and it's one of those moments.
Okay.
It was just one of those moments where the timing of it and everything else, what it showed is that throughout this terrible year we've all had, we've all got a moment of where we've enjoyed football.
Yeah.
And we've got many moments, we look back at the goal celebrations and everything else, and we've just enjoyed a bit of normality for all of us whilst the world has gone a little bit crazy. And my light-hearted moment is Jake on the podcast. Definitely.
And actually, we've had that contact with each other. It might have been virtually, but we've had that contact with one another. And I think that sustained us. One more to go. And then this season's done. Unfortunately, if it was a matter of one and it was one day later, we'd all be there. However, it's not to be. So join us next week. Thank you very much, Jake, Mark, Matt, Fiona. Thank you for joining this afternoon. And join us next week for the last fan cams of the season. I have no idea what next season's fan cam is going to look like. I'm not sure at all what next season's going to look like. Full stop. But join us next week. And in the meantime, take care and we'll see you then. Cheers. Bye-bye.